I'm going to be bringing in pretty much all of the clients' conversations I've had this morning about how when emotions run high, the temptation to eat or drink can run high too. Anybody been there? I have. So a couple of things. I just came back from my mastermind in San Diego over the weekend or last week, and then was traveling over the weekend and had a chance to reconnect with friends. And, it was interesting. It was interesting to sort of hear the conversations that were popping up for people with the stress of building businesses and running families and things like that. And here's what I know. We are so much more alike in so many ways than we are different, meaning that there's like universal struggles that we will all experience, perhaps at different points in our life, depending on, what's going on for you. But there are very real struggles out there. And those struggles bring about emotion, right? So big feelings sometimes, and whether that's like incredible heartbreak, incredible stress, even incredible joy and happiness. It can bring about, they're all big feelings. And the patterns that we've established in our life around food and alcohol are huge. And so when there's big emotions, there can often be a big tendency to go back to old habits and to eat and to drink. And so what we want to do now is go, okay, how do we want to get real about it? Right? Like if you have goals with health and with weight loss that you're not realizing in your life, in your life, then the biggest thing that you need to admit is what you're doing isn't working. What you are doing isn't working, and to continue to try and do the same thing or to like implement the same rules or strategies that aren't getting you to where you want to go is pretty much the recipe of insanity, right? And so the question becomes, well, if I'm not dieting, what do I do instead? And this is the question that I think if we can get 95% of women to like look at this question, we will solve the weight loss problem in the world. Because what you need to do instead is recognize that overeating and dieting are two extremes. And so what happens is and part of this is understanding the science of fat loss. There's just a science component to it. And you have to understand that even one night, like I went out, like I was saying, in San Diego, and if I was to have the appetizer, eat the entire entree, then eat the entire dessert, well, first of all, I probably wouldn't feel very good. But second of all, say that was just the meal, but then say I was also snacky, and say I like ate the bag of licorice or whatever on the plane, or had the bag of chips coming home. That one day can take at least a week to undo, right? And so what happens for women is we have a bad day, whatever that looks like, right? You have a bad day, you eat, consume sugar, snacks, coffee, lattes, maybe you're not eating a lot of veggies or protein, and then you feel crappy. Right? You might feel like your body's retaining water, you're going to step on the scale, see the number go up, and it creates more vicious thoughts, right? The negative things that you say to yourself in your head. So tomorrow you decide that it's going to be different. And so you're different for the day. You're maybe eating a little bit better and you step on the scale, but there's no change. Or even worse, maybe the scale goes up again. And so you think, okay, well, I just got to stay consistent, right? I got to stay disciplined with this. And maybe you do for like 3 or 4 days, but on the scale, you still don't see a change. What's the most likely thing to happen here? You give up. You say, screw it, right? I don't know, nothing's working. Everything I'm doing isn't creating the change that I want. And what happens is we forget the kind of crazy bad day that we had where we just overconsumed to such an extent. And our belief system, what we think is that by 2 or 3 days of eating well and not overeating like that, that it should negate everything. And it's just not true, right? It is so easy to consume thousands and thousands of calories in a day when you're being mindless. And that excess consumption can take sometimes a week or two to get rid of that consumption, right? It can get rid of the impact. And so most often we're so impatient. The desire to see weight loss happen quickly is what the dieting world has taught you. And so you think that if you don't see that change within 3 days or 4 days or 5 days, that somehow you're failing. And it's just not true, right? So one of the reasons that weight loss is a challenge for people. It's not even really about the behaviors or the things that you need to learn. And yes, there are critical things that you need to learn how to be healthy without dieting. You need to understand food, probably. You need to understand how much your body needs. If you're 5'2", or definitely if you're under 5'4", weight loss for you is going to be different than a woman who's 5'8" or 5'9", just simply because of your height. Right? I did a whole podcast on that because I had so many clients who are under 5'4" who didn't get that they were basically at a bit of a weight loss disadvantage due to their height. They're tiny. And so what we want to come back to is this idea that if you at the end of the day, if you're not losing weight, and this might just be a hard thing for some people to hear, and I know I was super pissed off when somebody told me it's because you are eating too much, right? The hard truth is if you're not losing weight, there is more coming into your body than your body needs. Now, I might hear all sorts of things like, yeah, but Jen, I eat really well, or I eat green and clean, or I eat everything that's organic, or I don't snack at night, or I don't do this, or that's great. I didn't do any of those things either. I did eat well. I ate good food. I ate healthy food. And I was completely misinformed about how much was too much for my body. Right? When I was going through my journey into trying to figure out what it took to lose weight and keep it off, I had to recognize that, yes, there's a whole bunch of things that are important emotionally and with my mindset and with really understanding what it takes to be enough and not have that rooted in a number on a scale. But I also had to fully accept that I ate too much or I consumed too many calories for my body size. And in this day and age, it's not hard to overeat. It's really easy, actually. In fact, I think it's one of the easiest things to do. If you take a look at the portions of what things are sold in, if you go to any airport, this is on my mind because I was just in airports. If you look at the snack section, everything is in huge bags. Nobody should eat that much food when they're on a plane or in an airport. And yet I probably watched 100 people at least devour the bags of treats that were sold in there. And I took a look to see what the, excuse me. I took a look at these bags to sort of see what the portions were, and it was insane. Then you take a look at plate sizes. Plate sizes are huge. You go to a restaurant, the portions are massive. Overeating is really easy to do. And it's easy just based on the stuff that were given to us or served to us. It's easy based on, sometimes our grab and go lifestyle. And so how do you get out of that? Really, how do you stop overeating? Well, first of all, you have to recognize that it's happening for you, right? If you think that you are eating the right amount of food for your body, but you're not seeing weight loss happen, well, that's your clue that you're wrong. Right? It's not working. I hear things like, well, Jen, it's just got to be my hormones. Sure, hormones can definitely play a role. But in all of my experience, which is a lot, I will dive into hormones, the minute that we tackle portions and overeating and what's driving you to eat, the emotional reason for overconsuming. It's funny, weight loss happens. And so you've got to be at a point where you're able to take a look and go, okay, how much is enough? And what's too much for me? And why do I eat what I eat when I'm eating it? Am I sad? Am I tired? Do I need to go to bed? Am I stressed? Do I just feel like candy? Am I just craving chocolate? What is the real reason that you're wanting that thing? Right? And I just talked to a client who was like, the week was hard last week. And I found myself really consciously saying, yeah, I want the third glass of wine. And, she knew it, she was in it, but she said, and these are critical words, she's like, the difference for me this time was I gave myself that day, I made those choices, and then the next day I just picked myself up and moved on. Whereas before, what she said is, if I'd done that before, I would have felt like a failure, I would have felt like I was screwing up everything, and I would have stayed in the pattern of just sort of soothing myself with food and with alcohol over the next few days. And so that's huge. That's a big thing to learn in the process of getting healthy from the inside out. You're going to have big feelings. You're going to have these hard, crazy things happen in life. I spoke to somebody today who had lost their mom, who had cared for their brother when he was dying with ALS. And that's hard stuff, right? There's emotion at play because we're emotional beings. But if our emotions sidetrack us to the point where we create permission to numb all of those feelings as opposed to feeling them with food or with alcohol, well, then we stop really living and experiencing all that life has to offer, the good and the hard. Leona, hi, I just see you popped on. We still need to have our walk. So this is where we're going, right? Is today, you got to be able to tune in to what's driving you, to what are you avoiding, to what is hard for you to experience. Is it loneliness? Is it isolation? I talked with a girlfriend on the weekend who is so afraid that at 40, she was never going to have a baby or find love. And so she was making it worse for herself because she was staying inside and eating and drinking and kind of just isolating and withdrawing because the fear was just so present. And then she was complaining about her weight, which her weight was contributing to her not putting herself out there onto dating apps or to going on blind dates. And so it's this cycle that we can start to go in where one initial fear can multiply. So all of a sudden, it's just like we're dealing with a spider's web of interconnectivity of negativity, and then we can become wrapped up in it. Yeah, Shell, hi, I get to see you soon. And so this is it. How do you start to unravel yourself from all of that negativity? So much of our efforts in life can often be on like stress management. And I say, well, why don't we try to change that to actually be, how are we perceiving stress in the first place? And I love it. Shelley, I was going to bring you up because, a dear friend of mine posted a picture of her holding a snake. And she said that she was terrified of snakes. And quite frankly, I'm like, I hate them. I can leap over tall buildings when I see them. And so she posted the picture, Shelley, I'm telling your story. And it was such a lovely Facebook post because she walked through her process of just how her mind had created such fear around the experience. But when she got present and just did it, it wasn't nearly as bad as what her mind had made it out to believe. I might be butchering that a little bit, but so often our minds will make the story worse. And we can get so enrolled into our own negativity and our own fear cycle that it becomes addictive, right? Our fears become addictive, our thinking around them becomes addictive, and it's habitual. Then it becomes our habit. And so when Shell posted this picture of the snake, first of all, I was like, I just wrote, oh my God, because I still have that fear and don't imagine I could actually do it. And it wasn't just like a baby garter snake. This was like a full-blown snake that she had wrapped around her neck and was holding. And yet, when you triumph over your fear and recognize that your mind made it so much worse than it actually is, you get stronger. Right? You get stronger mentally. You get to see that, wow, your mind made it so much more horrible than what the reality is. And where else do you do this in life? Right? Where else? And Shell, you might have a comment or two to put in there about what your actual experience was, but I can't wait to talk to you in person around it. But we'll do this. We'll do this with all sorts of things. So back to my girlfriend who is so afraid that she's not going to find a guy or have a baby, right? She's living life in such a small place right now with her fear being the cloak, right? It's like what she's got wrapped around her right now. And then it's becoming a self-created prophecy for herself. Her reality is becoming that she's not going on dates. Birthdays are coming and going where she is getting older, and women, we do have this biological clock. Although I just met somebody in my mastermind who is really healthy and pregnant at 42. She didn't give up. And so things can always be possible. But if you stay living in the fear cycle, then impossibility becomes the reality. And so I ask, right, if you want to evolve, if you're looking to up-level your life in like any different way, you have to start becoming aware of how you're creating those your own blocks in life. And what are you anesthetizing yourself to, right? Where are you numbing out? Because at the end of the day, the best laid out meal plan, the best laid out workout plan is only going to get you so far. And pretty much it only serves you on the days when you're like good. Right? It's easy to be good when things are good in life. It's who do you become when life gets hard? How do you react when, things are less than ideal? What do you turn to? What are your coping mechanisms? Because it's, I truly think when we're good, hey, it's easy to roll with the good and do the good things. But it's conflict and challenge that really shows us where we need to sort of step up and up level in our life. And for me, a long time ago, yeah, it meant not eating as much chocolate and drinking as much wine and actually feeling my feelings. And we seem to have this, the universal thing that's coming up in all of the Facebook groups that I'm running right now is this like, I don't know how to feel, right? We've become so disconnected, head, body, heart. We've become so disconnected from what matters most, or from, even just disconnecting to try to cope, that we forget that you actually have to name it to tame it. If you don't know what that means, write it down and I'll explain in just 1 second. You got to name it to tame it, right? For anything that you don't identify, it gets bigger. It's like the monster in the closet that we don't talk about, or it's like the secret thing that we think we're the only person who's ever gone through it, and we might feel shame or regret or a darkness around it. And yet the minute you have the courage to confide or be vulnerable with somebody else, and they're like, oh yeah, I've done that too, or that happened to me, or all of a sudden you're not alone. And you don't have to be alone in that fear or that shame or that regret or those pain points. So lots of different tangents here, right? The idea of the spider web of like negative thinking and fear-based thinking, and then recognizing that we are actually in control of that, is going to be the thing that helps you find your path to freedom with food and with your weight and with getting healthy. There is no other way. Right? There is no other way, because when you don't feel good, it's easy to sleep in and skip your workout. When you don't, feel like the best version of you, it's easy to go and grab the glass of wine and say, screw it. It's showing up for yourself when you don't feel like showing up. And we have to practice. I think that's the beautiful thing about life, right? Like I ran into a guy at the grocery store who was having his 50th birthday, and he's like, oh, I don't know, I'm turning 50. And I'm like, oh, congrats, that's great. He's like, I think so. And I was like, yeah, well, better than the alternative, not being able to turn 50. And he laughed, and we shared a moment there for a second. And like, here's the thing, we get so much time in life to practice. The point is that you don't quit, or that you don't believe in the impossibility, right? You don't believe in the negative story your mind is telling you, and that you remember every single thing you want, including getting healthy, being at the weight that feels right for you, experiencing vitality and radiance in your life. Of course it's available. If you haven't experienced it yet, it's because what you've been trying to do just hasn't worked for you to this point. And there's always going to be another opportunity. One of those opportunities is also going to be tonight. I'm teaching another live webinar at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, which is all about how to stop feeling like a failure if you've failed on a diet. 95% of the world fails on diets. So it's not you, right? I want to help you escape that broken or like I've failed feeling, and actually teach you what it's going to take to succeed without dieting, to get healthy and experience, an abundance of energy and joy and radiance in your life. So I'll put the link in the comments if you want to come and join me tonight. That's 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. Pacific. I know we've had some emails go out about that, and it's posted in the Facebook, on the Facebook page. But if you have questions, I'm spending a ton of time afterwards answering questions in real time. Lots of people will do replays of webinars, and I've just had so much fun teaching live that I just want to keep going. So I hope you can join me for that, and I hope that wherever you're at today, Mondays, I think it's the day that we do need to get real with ourselves and get real with what's going on, and we get real with our desires, and then to get real with going after them. But it starts with mindset first. So have a super Monday, everybody. Leona, we got to go for that walk. Shell, can't wait to go for a paddleboard, hopefully this weekend. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. Talk to you soon. Bye.